couldn't hear me. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a fantastic panel. Have pulled together some of the leading minds in architecture, design, and then AI creative. One of them I had an opportunity to speak with on a panel at NFT London just recently. That's my good friend Diego Castro. He is with Monomo, and he is an architect and a CGI artist. Then we have Matias Del Campo, a professor, Iosif Guinness, and Michalis Krinu. Great discussion. I'm looking forward to having. Thank you so much for joining. I'm going to bring in the panel now. Matias, how are you? Diego, how are you?
Doing good. Thank you very much.
Hi, Seth. Thank you. Thank you for having us here.
Hello.
Michalis, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining. And then Iosif, how are you?
Always good, and you?
Good. So, one of the things to note is that we are a global community. I would love to just say I'm in California. Where are you all right now?
I'm in Cyprus.
I'm in Milano.
Excellent.
I'm in London.
I'm in Detroit, Michigan.
Excellent. Look at that. Fantastic. So thank you so much for taking time to join us. You all have been leading voices in regards to AI, design, and architecture. And I knew that, when having this discussion, I wanted to end up having each of you join. So if you would give an introduction, a little bit of an intro on who you are, and what do you do? Matias, if you'd like to go first.
Sure. So my name is Matias Del Campo. I'm an associate professor of architecture at Taubman College for Architecture and Urban Planning at the University of Michigan, and the director of the ARI laboratory, the Laboratory for Architecture and Artificial Intelligence, also at Taubman College, which is a interdisciplinary collaboration between architecture, computer science, robotics, and data science. And I'm, together with Sandra Manninger, the head of the architecture practice SPAN.
Amazing. And how many students do you have in your courses or in your department?
So, the department is rather large. We have around 750 students, or is it more? Wait, no, it's more actually. And but it's very well organized so that every studio has a maximum of 12 students, which is a really good learning environment for the students, because you have really very close connection to them and can develop projects very in depth with them. We have a PhD program that also is starting to offer possibilities to study more towards, for example, robotics application in architecture, or also computer science and AI in architecture.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today. I will, Diego, I'll pass that to you. Would you like to?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ed. Thank you for creating this space and having us here. My name is Diego Castro. I am a digital CGI artist now, delving into AI. I've been running my own CGI brand for the last 10 years, which is called Monomo. And I have an exceptional talent endorsement by the Arts Council England. I am now based in London, but I'm originally from Colombia in South America. I have an architectural background, but I've always been interested in technologies that have to do with visualization for architecture.
Amazing. And these are what you're seeing here on the left here. These are some of the works that you had shared. Thank you for preparing this and sending this.
Yes.
I am going to bring up Michalis, and then I just want to find his presentation too. Michalis, you want
So,
to give a little bit
yeah,
more
sure.
of a, yeah.
So basically, I also have a background in architecture. I have worked as an architect for 2 years, and then I just wanted to work in CGI. So I started working in London in a few companies, and then I had to come in Cyprus to work because of COVID. So I'm very interested in new technologies, and AI is one of them. And I'm actually thrilled that this technology is now open to everybody, because some of the ideas we had as architects at school, university, we couldn't do them in 3D and explore them even more. So I'm really happy that we can engage more in these kind of new technologies and share with everybody our work.
Amazing. And thank you for sharing. I think what's interesting is that we've all connected on LinkedIn. We have connected because we have shared. So it's not a space to stand by and watch, be an active participant in what's going on with, the world that you create around yourself. Each of you enriches my timeline, but my life. So thank you, Michalis, for sharing your work. I think it's
Of course.
beautiful, as well
Thank you.
as all of the other panelists on the table. But thank you so much for sharing. Then
Thank
I
you.
will. You're welcome. I will end up. Sif, I'm going to find your. There we go. All right.
So yeah, my name is Joseph Guinness. I'm originally half Greek, half Lebanese. I've moved to Milan 8 years ago and started working with different architecture studios, mostly on concepts for international competitions. And lately we've been designing a lot of projects in Shanghai, also in Dubai. So up to like 30 projects, large scale. And I came across AI by accident. I ran a page on Instagram for Arch sci-fi scripts, and I started launching like a challenge, and different artists used to text me, and I got in contact with a lot of them, but mostly it was disco diffusion. So this is where I started, and I ended up with stable diffusion lately. This is a general overview. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for joining. So disco diffusion, I think, was the first one that I had seen. I think John Radoff was using it and was doing some amazing creative. And at the time, it was. I mean, who knew what was going to happen? I mean, Mid-Journey changed the world, I think. And you mentioned, you happened upon AI. It's like, and it's all like, oh, and then your life is,
I
is
never
forever.
used Mid-Journey, so I still have a lot
no.
to.
Mid-Journey has got it solved some of the UX UI. I think it made it super easy for others to dive in. So you all shared a bit of what you'd like to go over, but I think just to start out, I would say I would ask this: how has AI changed your process or your thoughts about the future of your profession and how you'll engage with it? And I'll start with Matthias.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the question, Tess. It's a really good question. I want to maybe say before that, Sandra, my partner, and I, we started working or thinking about AI in architecture in the late 90s when we came in touch with the Austrian Institute of Artificial Intelligence. And by then, they were basically at the point where they could simulate one neuron to one neuron. So it was pretty primitive. But it already helped us to understand, okay, this is somehow going to shape architecture in the future. And then it took a long time until tools came along that were actually really good to be used, like Style Gun or style transferring and things like that, which came up 2014, 2015. And then we really started to go more deeply into that with thinking about creating the laboratory and so on during the pandemic, because that's the point where we really had time to sit down and think about those topics in more serious terms. And so, which at that time was also, it doesn't sound that exciting, but we had to write a bunch of papers just to get it out of our system. Like, what can we do with architecture, with AI in architecture in the future? How is it going to influence the discipline? And this whole thing exploded much faster than we both expected. So no one of us saw things like diffusion models coming that fast up. Yeah, not even our colleagues at computer science. Yeah, and so that actually has, apart from all the things that we discussed before, which were about automation and optimization possibilities with AI, and also the development of particularly interesting aesthetics through things like StyleGAN or StyleGAN 2, what Midjourney and those diffusion models brought along, and Disco diffusion was also the first one I started working with. We had actually previously already a text-to-image project where we used actually an attentional GAN, which also can take text and translate to images, yeah, but it's different than a diffusion model. So Disco diffusion changed a lot of things for us. And then with Midjourney, which is so much faster than Disco diffusion, for example, it changed everything again. And one of the main things that come from these diffusion models, in my opinion, is that it turns around the process of, for example, working with a client. Because until now, you basically, let's say you want to present a client 3 versions of a project. So you make your sketch, and I'm using a very conventional method of designing to explain that. You take a pen, you make some sketches, somebody 3D models the thing out, creates the details, goes more and more into detail, makes the renderings, makes some money shots, and then you go to the client with those money shots and present him, look, here are 3 versions. What do you think is something we should work on? Now we're turning that process completely around. We take something like Midjourney, we create the money shots first and go to the client and tell him, what do you think? What do you think is interesting of these versions?
Great point. I had never thought about that. It was reverse engineering it, so you're actually going backwards. And do you find that, Iosif, Diego, and Michalis, do you find that consistent with your practices as well?
Yes. Michalis, you wanna go? Okay, you wanna go?
Oh, you can talk as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Matthias from my business. You usually work on a initial concept to present to possible investors in residential projects, and now with all these Midjourney tools, with diffusion models, it's almost like you can arrive at the finished product, and then you're trying to recreate that initial success that you had into into the project itself. So I think I mean for me it's definitely changing the whole process of how it used to work. But I would, if I can be honest, I was kind of expecting that would happen for quite a bit. Since yeah, I think like it was the keynote of NVIDIA in 2019 by Jensen Huang. He started mentioning the advancements of AI and visualization, and how it was going to be more efficient. But I think this completely changed the game in terms of how the CGI environment is going to work. And I think it's just we're a little bit in a beta mode. I can't imagine for the next 5 years how it's gonna be.
It's the biggest beta test ever.
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I mean, and then it's like, everybody, oh, Discord's done, and then Midjourney says, oh no, it's not. Take this. Michalis, thoughts on how it's affected your work or your initial process, or what that looks like?
Well, working in an architectural office, so the process of visualization is basically in design stages. So basically, the main architect gives me a sketch or an idea. I have to 3D model it, and then we are going through many changes until the architect and the client resolve the actual 3D model, and then we go into the detail. So in my area, I wouldn't say that it helps me in my work. It's very creative, and what it does for me, it's exploring creative ideas, and actually, it's something that made me research more stuff about architecture and visualization styles, different details, different eras, Renaissance, classic, whatnot. So basically, it made me go into things more and investigate more. So I think in that sense, it made me more creative in developing personal concepts, which could work for concept making for movies or posters. I wouldn't say in architecture right now, at least in Cyprus. Cyprus is not that into AI right now, so I believe it can help many other big companies and the way they use Sketch into 3D, which many artists have shared over the weeks on LinkedIn, which I find really interesting. So I believe for me it's just mainly being creative, and of course you can use it for many other things like branding, and many others are using it right now, and they have to undergo a lot of copyright about their work. So
just to touch on the copyright aspect, what's interesting is I had read that one of the bigger stock photo places was introducing a way to basically opt out, that you could remove yourself from it, which I think is a great solve. For me, copyright, I don't have those answers. That's going to get worked out. We're not putting the AI toothpaste back inside of the toothpaste tube.
Yeah.
It's never going to happen. They'll figure it out. You've already seen the shift from Getty no, but Shutterstock and those other ones. They're introducing it in there. They're introducing it into their platform, which is super interesting. One of the things that was interesting about this, which is different with architecture, is that it allowed you to go from zero to idea in a very short period of time. So I'm interested in how that is, that's different, because you're not going to go and say, I'm going to make a Western town. You actually kind of have an idea for what you're building first, and then you kind of do that. But I think, Iosif, did you go as well already?
From my side, I still haven't implemented it at work. It's more for inspiration and research and creativity, because in our design process, we usually use Pinterest to find, let's say, inspiration or some facade examples, and then we combine them into our final, let's say, concept. But generating directly from Stable Diffusion, I think it still needs some control, because it would be interesting, like, to give it a specific dimension for the building, a specific height. So I would say it works more as an inspiration for now, and I would like to see it like evolve into something more technically, how to say, like, where you can control the technical aspect,
the reliability of it. Yeah. So I see that all comes, doesn't it? I mean, all of those things are just the next iteration. Matthias, you had touched upon something where you mentioned, it was very simple back then and how these things were trained. But every time you want to start a new learning process, you start at the foundational aspect. Isn't that true with all of these?
I mean, yeah, there's a variety of different aspects here that come into play when it comes not only about the generative qualities of it and what it produces, but also to Michalis' point about the copyright and authorship problem here, which is a massive thing that we need to discuss. Because I mean, I've had, like 2 weeks ago, we had a symposium at Taubman College, neural architecture, where we had several colleagues come and we discussed actually certain aspects of how it influences the office, how it influences the way we design, how it influences the results of architecture, up to the point that it could change how we use architecture as humans. So there's like a whole set of things happening here. And the funny thing is that it's a little bit preposterous, in my opinion, to think that we have sole authorship on those imageries or results, because they're based on the work of thousands and thousands of other architects, designers, painters, artists, and so on and so forth. So an argument that I've been making is that we have to rethink or get rid of the idea of authorship, because basically authorship is a concept that was invented in the 18th century, long before there was anything that could generate sort of imagery in some way, shape, or form, when authorship was very clear, right? I mean, you have a guy with a pen, and he makes a drawing, or he writes a paper, or he writes a poem. That actually institutes very clear authorship. But now I can train a neural network with, for example, text by Hemingway, and it can produce text that sounds like Hemingway. Yeah, who's the author here? Me? Because I just started the process, or is it Hemingway because it's trained on Hemingway? Yeah. So there are things that are not going to work like that any longer. And this image right here, for example, right here is a good example from Michalis. There is aspects and elements here of Zaha Hadid's architecture. And it's because there's so much data Zaha Hadid in the data set of Midjourney that it tends to do this sort of imagery. Yeah. So is it now Michalis' work, or is it Zaha's work?
No.
Well, and also this would go back to, and I'm not going to be an architecture, theory person, but this also goes back to, I mean, Michalis, you've been, is brutalist is your thing? Is that what I was? And it also goes back to even the airport designs. I think I've seen that in some of the stuff that everybody has shown. Does the creation process create new possibilities for manufacturing, production, and physical builds that was never that wasn't possible before? Michalis, I'll stay with you.
Yes, I would say it does. Because as they do in movies, in science fiction movies, and they create these extreme scenarios of brutalism, of futurism in like 2000 years ahead, I believe it gives us an idea of how the making of buildings and how the future will look like, either in a dystopian scenario or in a utopian scenario. And this is why I have been engaging more and more about neo-futurism and utopian utilitarianism and brutalism. So these are two contradictive scenarios that we see in movies, and I'm really inspired by many of these movies, like Blade Runner, Fifth Element, and many others. So I believe there is always a juxtaposition, if I may say, between these two elements, and it can give us a new vision of how the future could become, either if we use it correctly, if we use the technology correctly, or if we don't. And brutalism could be one of the ways that the world goes into destruction, but we as humans might have to live in this type of buildings because it's a dystopian scenario. So the technology will be different in a dystopian scenario and different in a nice utopian, elegant futurism. So I believe it does help us shape the future. It does give us an idea and gives us the creativity to investigate even more. And some of them are inspired by architects, of course, by shapes like Zaha Hadid, Jacques Fresco, and many others that I have been researching over the weeks. And I have learned a lot of stuff. And I believe while investigating through AI, we can probably build a better world. So I guess it helps us in that sense.
I'm going to move to Iosif in regards to some of the process stuff we touched upon. Was Michalis, you just mentioned in regards to the disciplines, and I believe Matthias, you may have touched on this as well. But in regards to the technology that's used, for example, a camera style or a render style or a language style. And so when you look at what you have here is you've got a process, you've got your case study, as well as the prompts. And I just wanted to touch on this for you, Iosif, to walk through like how this works and how you lay this out to get the results that you have.
I started the same way we started an architecture, let's say concept, by modeling on SketchUp a basic shape. The thing is that I tried both ways. I tried like from a simple model, as you see here. I tried also to render it myself and to then explore what happens in Stable Diffusion. So the more details I added, the less, the less, how to say, the results were conforming to the original shape. So I noticed like the simpler, simpler models here, they are quite similar to the outcome. And for example, on the top, I tried to also introduce disco diffusion. I noticed with disco diffusion in the middle of these steps, it adds a bit of details of colors. The bottom one, it stayed very similar to the original SketchUp file. Of course, I just showed 4 images, but in reality, it took like more than 10. So I kept reintroducing it as an initial image each time to add a bit more details.
So you start with the volume is
the volume
SketchUp. Just comes right out of SketchUp.
Yeah, just a screenshot, very basic. And then I start with a low strength for the changes inside Stable Diffusion, and I repeat the process many times. I really like working with both disco diffusion and Stable Diffusion. Like I like the result of the top one in the end. Like the coloring, like the change was bigger than the low one.
So you take it into Stable Diffusion first, and then finish it off with the details for disco diffusion.
And then the last one is against Stable Diffusion because it's honestly more realistic. Disco diffusion doesn't have a bit this realism; it's more artistic. So in the end, I tried again Stable Diffusion to make it look like the final image on the right.
When I came for the artificial intelligence, I came for the stormtroopers and the samurais. That was my thing. I haven't shown you. You have seen some of my work.
Star Wars, honestly, if you see a lot of buildings I did, it was mainly.
I did see those. I think this is one right here. Did everybody see Andor?
Yes.
Not yet.
Andor is fantastic. It's probably some of the best sci-fi that's out there. I would say give it a chance. It's the best Star Wars one as well. So Iosif, I'll pause for you now. I'm going to go to Diego and have him either pick up that or touch upon something that stood out for him while we were talking. Diego, and this is your work. Is this a dendro? I don't know how to say it. What kind of
some sort of like parametric biomimicry structure merged with nature. Yeah, no, but I think in the discussion there were a couple of subjects that I want to touch upon, specifically with starting with the Iosif process, which I would say I'm very experienced CGI producer at the moment. So like it's funny how that process that you were describing is mostly the same as we normally used to do in CGI. So for me, at least from my perspective, all these diffusion models are just the next iteration in technology.
Interesting.
For creation, for architectural concept creation. And
so you're saying that you start with the structure anyway, and on top of it, you're just designing on top of it. So you get the base structure. You're saying that first iteration, interesting. So you know your constraints, your parameters, what you can build in, what your size is, and then you just change it on top. Like Midjourney give me whatever the location is.
Yeah, precisely. And I think what these models are lacking right now is a real appreciation for the 3D shapes that you're working with, or scale, because if you go deep into the technology, it's just rearranging pixels from different dimensions and clusters from the databases that
I,
it has, and then
I saw somebody get a prompt to make somebody smile from a birthday cake. So I don't know how that's pixels. That seems more like magic to me. Don't ruin it. Well, it's interesting. While you're saying that, you're talking about space, depth, dimension, sheen, the texture and all that. This has volume to it. This image that we're looking at here, this has some depth and dimension to it. And
yes,
you're saying
yes.
that's just pixels.
Yes, well, it's interesting because it's grabbing information from previous renderings that I'm feeding the model. So it's creating these images based on the proportions on images that were
Interesting.
produced before.
Now, just to touch on that, Diego? So, do you use the work that you've done previously that's garnered great results, and then you continue to feed those in? So you say, I want those consistent results. So you're starting to take your kind of like seed phrase scenario and inserting those in so that you maintain the style that you're developing, across any learning module, really. Because if you were to dive into an era, time, and other, it's just another like volume from like the matrix of kung fu, but Zaha Hadid now, or Brutalist, or
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing that with previous produced generative images, but I've been doing also putting like my previous CGI work into those
Awesome.
models, and then getting some series off of that. So that's where I think it gets the greater results. So it kind of understands, because you can give weight to the images that you're using. Let's say if you're using Midjourney V3, or V2, you can add the image weight parameter, and then if you add it to the max, then it understands that it should take most of its information from what you're using on the back.
But you're doing it with an intent and a purpose that is, you're elevating the process. And I only say that distinction is because myself as a user, I'm not using it for a result. I'm using it for the experience of it. And so as you're talking about this, this progression of it, it's interesting to note that is a way to get that result. I think we talked about it earlier, to where it was like there's a randomness to it. You're saying I want to remove some of that randomness and make sure that I get refinement out of this tool.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I think is just testing around beta mode, and it's just producing interesting results. Maybe results that we're not expecting, or that we had in the back of our minds, but is now showing. And the validation process is just extraordinary. You can test 10 ideas now, where you can. I mean, for architectural practices, I think this is just a game changer if you use it as a potential.
Interesting. Yeah, it is interesting that you can get 10 different ideas in 10 minutes rather than, some might even say, even faster than looking at. I think Pinterest was mentioned.
Yeah, and that leads to the second point that Matthias and Michalis were touching upon, which was copyright issues. I think, Seth, as you said, that will be solved. It won't. It'll be difficult to get these tools out of like the hands of, especially Stable Diffusion, since it's open source. But if you, from my interactions with hundreds of architectural practices, in terms of like bringing their ideas or their initial concepts into into reality. I can't say the amount of times that I've gotten like references from different like star architects, and they just say like just do something like looks like this, and we grab the idea from here and there. So I think AI is just putting in written what was already happening in the back. So and if you go into the industry, let's say Zaha Hadid, so it's a team of 800 people here in London. I don't know how many people they have in New York and in Singapore.
Incredible.
And they're most of them they're creating these projects and these competitions that they're working on, and it's all getting circled around the brand of Zaha Hadid. So it might be a little bit controversial what I'm saying, but the rights are not really going to the right people, if you know what I mean. So
Interesting.
it's and that happens with any architectural practice that I mostly been involved with. So yeah, the architect's a great designer and is the one leading the team and taking most of the risks, but they do have a big team associated to all the work that it's been done with them.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting debate, the copyright one.
So what I would love to do is, Matthias, I want to just touch on, you brought up some great points when we first started speaking about this, and I just want to give you a little bit of a chance to touch on those, because I know that those are top of mind. But you had mentioned the post-human design, new aesthetics, and the role of aesthetics in data set building. And so I know that touches on copyright a bit, but let's touch on that, and I'll share some of your work along with it. And I will say this as well, Diego, fantastic work. Matthias, fantastic work. Thank you for sharing your beautiful creations.
Yeah, thank you very much. Also, thank you for having me. I forgot actually to thank at the beginning. I wanted to add a couple of things and thoughts that I had, like hearing where the discussion goes to. The discussion basically rotates only around diffusion models and Midjourney, but that's not AI, or it's only a small segment of AI. Yeah, and I think as architects we have to consider the bigger picture, what AI can really do for design, if you think about it, AI is really good in two things, right? Optimization and prediction. That's like why AI was created in the first place. It was not created to make pretty images. That's a byproduct of AI research. Yeah. So if we think about these possibilities that we have, and for example, also interestingly, models like diffusion models have no idea what they're doing. Yeah. So they have no understanding of semantic information in the data sets. So for example, if you generate sections or plans in Midjourney, they look pretty, but that's all there is. They look pretty. That's it. They make no sense whatsoever. Yeah, because there is no semantic information for the AI to understand this is a living room, this is a sleeping room, this is a toilet, etc., etc. It doesn't know what those things are. Yeah. But actually, you can do that as an architect. You can sit down, and here we are with the theme of dataset building. You can sit down with a ton of people and start annotating plans, apartment plans, in the case of one thing that we are doing, yeah, and really make make a dataset where a neural network understands what is the living room, what's the toilet, what's the sleeping room, etc. And the goal of that is to be able to optimize apartment plans so that we can actually elevate the living conditions of people all around the world. Yeah. So these are things that are really challenging and interesting for AI. And you can attach that to any sort of problem we have in architecture, whether it's ecological, whether it's economical, whether it's structural. Yeah. If something produces numbers, we can use it in a data set to do something with it, with learning systems, because that's like the main revolution that we are experiencing now is the change from expert systems that are like 3D modeling software, where you top-down design something and then you somehow create plans and sections. Might it be also in a building information model? It's all top-down versus a learning system where you have machines that actually learn. What does it mean to create a good architectural project? What does it mean to create one that uses less energy or less material or has a better structure? And that's what I think is revolutionary.
And when I look at that, so Iosif, you brought this up earlier in regards to, I think you all touched on this, is that it doesn't know dimensions, it doesn't know spatial, but you can, in Stable Diffusion, do XY axis. And you can do accesses in there, and you can program it in a sense to where it's a 4D box. And then what, Matthias, what you just shared was kind of the foundation for all of these machine learning models, is that it starts in a very basic scenario and then builds up, but it uses that basics, that Rosetta Stone to learn how to do dimensions or to learn what aesthetics is good or what's pleasing by being trained. So if I would say that where we're at now, would you all, I'll say this, and if you can all touch on this, but where does that take us in the future? And does this exponentially change everything in the future?
Absolutely. First of all, things like the function in disco diffusion that you can animate in a specific in a specific direction. That's only ray tracing. It's not a 3D model. It's just the illusion of a 3D model, right? So if you want to do something in 3D in architecture, and all the people here have done enough modeling to know that you need a 3D model to really be able to, for example, translate that into a BIM model that allows you to build something properly, you need a 3D model. And there is already some approaches out there to use artificial intelligence with 3D models, or more specifically neural networks. There is 3D GANs already out there. But here we are again with the problem of the data sets that you prompt me to set, which is there is not enough really good data sets for architecture design out there yet. They're all data sets that were done for other things. Yeah. So the ModelNet, for example, has a lot of 3D models, but they're all very raw and rough. Yeah. And also the problem is that all those data sets were not done by architects. Thus, they lack actually really good examples that we as architects would consider good, interesting, innovative, well-done architecture. They just take any architecture or any building. I would rather describe those as buildings, not as architecture anyways. Yeah.
Well,
what I'm trying to say here is that we have to engage. Go ahead.
No, please go ahead. It was another thought. Go ahead.
No. What I wanted to say with this is that we as architects have to engage also in the nitty-gritty of creating the basis for things that we want to create in architecture with AI, because otherwise someone else will do it for us, and that's going to be problematic.
Interesting. So if you can, would you touch a bit more on the the stuff that you had shared with me in regards to authorship? I think that's a big topic. But if I would put next to that authorship and then create like a style, like creating your style now, can you like kind of touch upon that? Because it seems like we're moving into a space to where it's like you can use the tools that are available now to start to create and inform your style. But would you touch on that, Matthias?
Yes, I can tell you an anecdote about that. A couple of weeks ago, there was the Acadia conference in Philadelphia at Penn, and there was a panel that was specifically discussing diffusion models with some of the developers of diffusion models, including people from Disco Diffusion. Yeah, and so I think this is Elizabeth Inri. Inri was there, and she said something that I thought was really, really revealing. She said, if you do not have an artistic project in general, you're not going to be able to do any good images also in a diffusion model. So you have to have a certain imagination, you have to have a certain language capability, you have to have a certain basic interest in the arts to be able to prompt a diffusion model to do anything interesting. Otherwise, it's just going to be repetitions and copies and boring imitations of things we know. Yeah? So nothing really provocative or new can come out of something where you don't have enough imagination to prompt it to do something interesting, right? So I often say AI does not do anything automatically. You always have to. It's always human input that makes it do something. Yeah. Even the algorithm itself is human. So we shouldn't think of it as being completely post-human.
And Michalis,
Yeah.
if you can jump in here and share a little bit in regards to that, because I know you touched on it earlier.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Matthias. Basically, it's all human intervention and it's human input. So it's not just the AI doing the work. You have to have a certain kind of imagination to input whatever you're telling it. And most of the times, especially in the beginning, I was looking at many pictures and they didn't make any sense. And I do understand that when Midjourney or Stable Diffusion came out first, many people just wanted to explore things very quickly and they just had rough ideas. I think it's really important, especially for architects or CGI artists or any other profession that has to do with a creative input and concept artists as well. They have to have a certain idea beforehand, and it's really important because you cannot just begin with two words or just a phrase and think that it's gonna have a nice result. So as far as I'm concerned, I usually kind of write essays on Midjourney because I almost always have a very clear idea of what I want previously. So I think of it before I do some research based on what I want to create. And what I do like doing with AI is combining different styles and architecture from many architects or concept artists and see where it gets me. So it's basically creating a new architecture, a new style through AI. It's not repetition, and I believe if you have a good idea in the beginning and then you use rescale and remastering, etc., then you can have a final outcome, which could be nice at the end, or it could be something else that you initiated. Yeah.
That's valuable anyway. So what we're talking about the creative process. So super interesting. Where it goes to, it might not be where you wanted to go to, but the creative process has now got everything firing, which I think is interesting about Midjourney is it works on a endorphin, dopamine reward system way better than likes on Instagram, right? To where it's making everything pop and fire.
Definitely.
Interesting. So let me come back to you, Diego, in a second. But Iosif, tell me a little bit about that and where you're at with that, with your design, and if all that tracks.
Yeah, I wanted to comment a bit about the discussion earlier. That I noticed, I've been doing a bit of research that most of the integration that is happening between AI and some 3D softwares, it's like it's going in the wrong direction. So it's like you model something on Grasshopper and then you want to get a nice image through the AI. I think it should go also in the other way. Like, for example, in BIM, building information modeling, like it's interesting. Like when you use Revit, one line can have all the information of a wall, like the dimension, the material, the all the data. So it would be interesting to have like this kind of integration from AI to like from an image to get to, how to say, a final product that has already all the information. So it's still not clear. I'm still like researching about it, but
no. What's interesting is this. So what's been brought up is a reverse engineering. Let's reverse engineer an image to see what the text is. What's interesting about it is that it's this thought of, is the machine training us or are we training the machine? And it's kind of like the machine is training us how to use a language in order to achieve a result. Sorry to go with that, but go on, Iosif.
I think it should be also combined like with data, like maybe other than the prompt, like a place where you say, okay, the walls should have, let's say, this kind of material, this kind of
Texture,
texture.
density,
Also,
sound
the
dampening.
layers, like how many layers should be inside the insulation, like things that are a bit technical, but it will be interesting, like in the future, to have these things. You can just you write a prompt and then you write the dimensions of a building. It can give you like a very basic shape that has everything already ready, and then you start like modifying it. It's just
If we're where we're at 3 months in after Midjourney dropped, or 4 months in after Midjourney dropped, do you all see that taking place? Because we've all hinted at the same thing: is that if it is trained on this, can we achieve those results? Do you see that as something that's possible in the future?
I think so, because I already started seeing on LinkedIn a lot of people who are testing with Rhino and Grasshopper. So why not with some other stuff like Beam? But I think it would take some time because like the database needs to be, how to say,
Sophisticated,
it's like someone has
refined.
to collect it. Yeah. In the images you're showing, like honestly, I always start from zero without an idea.
Amazing.
I like to explore concepts, like usually we develop a concept through architecture style. Here I mostly use either feelings, or I see a nice graffiti and I would like to create it as a building. So you can see each topic, the creations that came from each topic. Warcraft on the left, Horizon, something in the middle, I forgot the name.
Horizon
Here it's
Dawn,
like related on the right. So I like to mix feelings with material, with like not just architecture styles. Like sometimes I don't even write a style at all. I just write like a random a sad Warcraft building, like, and I give a lot of description that is like, it can be like 20 words sometimes for describing the building. So
Diego, what do you got?
Well, I feel so, I want to congratulate Michalis and Iosif and Matthias for some of the images I've been watching here. They're really great ones. Yeah, just seeing other people's work just gets you excited. One of the things I experienced with all this diffusion wave is collaboration with other architects. This will take me to a point I wanna touch upon regarding collaboration. But I just value a lot how it's bringing creative people together. I've had the chance to collaborate with at least three other professionals, architects and designers, and it's sort of like you take a step back, and then you collaborate on this idea, and I've also done that in traditional terms in architecture, and then this facilitates that. So I guess it's another opportunity for that. And in regards of like my ending thought on the copyright thing is that this is sort of like making us a step back as creators or like taking so much pride on our own creations and focus more on collective narratives. That's at least what I've been trying to do with my work, since we have like very wide issues that are well known, such as climate change. So it's sort of like it allows you to take a step back as a creator. So because the effort is reduced in such a way that you try to put ingredients of bigger issues out there for society into your own work. So I think everyone has their own approach to this. I guess this is one of mine, thinking of what Michalis was saying of possible futures that we could have, even if it's not technical now, because as Matthias said, this has no semantic information, no 3D information that we can actually convert into something. I was doing this exercise of trying to produce one of the AI generated concepts into 3D, and even you as a creator, it does take an additional layer of challenge to think of these which appear as 3D and convert it into actual 3D models, which I found interesting. There's some models out there, or are these papers? Is Dream Diffusion, I think is the name, where they're actually gonna create 3D models from image information. I've seen other Daniel. I forgot his last name right now. Sorry, but he's working on how to introduce at least into 3D model information that then you can that then you can input into BIM software, 3D software, and then
Interesting.
test structural properties or whatever. But I think this is just talking about the potential new intersections of the future, and also also something I wanted to touch upon is all the intersections that we're seeing popping up right now between the blockchain space, artificial intelligence, architecture, and CGI, and concepts like the metaverse. So it's kind of like you have to be aware of all these step away from your own professional and creative area of expertise, and realize all the intersections that are coming together with all of these technologies. I think it's quite interesting.
It's a great convergence. It really is an incredible time to witness, you know, I would say, but you know, even more so is participate. I mean, I think Web3 started that, you know, it was at an interesting time in the world. The pandemic was there. Web3 happened. Remote work took place. And you saw people start, you know, you probably saw more people learning these things that were happening in the future. This is the same thing. You're touching the tools that are going to shape the future. Matthias, I know that that we have a brief time with you, but you know, some last words, you know, and I might also like to know, you know, how does this get introduced into the class, into the class, the learning, you know, the learning process? And then let me just trade this out. How does that work? And then if you could say goodbye as well, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the main messages that I always have in these sort of conversations is that we as architects have to engage with this tool. We have to be the ones doing the data sets. We have to be the ones acquiring the expertise of how to master this and really integrate that into our community and the discipline. Because if we don't do it, someone else will do it for us. And that's my biggest concern, because it means then that it's going to be controlled by developers and by financiers and so on, and will degrade the architects to just decorators, so to speak, not people who engage with the contemporary problem that is right in front of us. And also, I think it is an enormous chance for the discipline. It's an incredible chance to progress with the idea of architecture, not only in terms of its morphology or aesthetics, but just even to the point of construction and building and material consumption. So we can basically answer some of the questions we need to answer anyways in terms of sustainability, also with this novel tool, on probably the highest level we could do so far. In my opinion, this is the first 21st century design method. Anything that came before in computational design, parametric modeling, scripting, versioning, blobs, etc., all the things were developed already in the 20th century, late 20th century, and we only refined them through the last 2 decades. But the use of AI in architecture is a completely new paradigm, and we should really engage with it. And with this, I would like to say goodbye and thank you very much for the invitation. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Matthias. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matthias.
So who wants to pick up from there? Michalis, you know, just to circle around what Matthias had said, is that he said that it's up to the artists, you know, or architects or the discipline to ensure that the model is trained properly and has the right information.
Well,
So
yeah.
interesting.
I think the more information you put into AI, the more it learns from us. So this is very important, and we learn from it as well. And that's the case with AI because we input a lot of information that we may know from research or from our professions or from the artistic discipline, and AI is feeding and it's giving an outcome. So it's learning from us and it's giving us many outcomes. So we learn from it too. And I think in a way it's like two people talking. So it's I tell someone something, he learns from me, he tells me something, and I get new information. So it's amazing to have these extreme and chaotic output from Midjourney because it really gives us the opportunity to invest in those disciplines, in the creativeness, the artistic whatnot. I mean, as far as this is concerned, this is what I can say. There's many issues that you could have from AI, and for me at least, as a creative thinker and many creative thinkers out there, I think it's really important that AI came out, and it's really important how we use it in the future and how it will shape the future.
And with that, I also, how will you use it moving forward in your discipline?
So far, I would say like as an inspiration. So because I've been testing it, and it's not very reliable still. Like for example, even if I model 10 floors and then I place it in the as an initial image, and I do the prompt and I write 10 floors, it will end up doing something a bit different. I don't know if it's a stable diffusion issue, or I should start using maybe Midjourney. So I haven't experimented enough. I've been a bit focused on. I really like disco diffusion at the beginning. For 2 months, I was having horrible results, but it was very exciting. Like all night, it was like I was rendering things, and now it's been almost 1 month and a half stable diffusion. So I think I need to experiment more and to understand if we can have more clear information, like other than the aesthetic part, like also some function, like the functional one. Because as you can see, most of the buildings, they're a bit too conceptual, futuristic. So maybe the ones on the left are the ones that can be really built. For example, here I'm showing a process like of. I also do something. It's like I tend to use a lot of steps. Like in Stable Diffusion, I use 500 steps, like the maximum. Each image takes me like 20 minutes to generate, and I found that the more steps you use,
no wonder you stay up all night.
Yeah, it's true.
Render. You love that. You love the render. You love the rendering time. Render.
It's honestly very exciting.
You don't want to lose that. You don't want to say goodbye to the old times. So Liz, we'll go around. So first of all, thank you all for joining. What I would love to do is go around to each of you again and let you finish off and share. We have this remarkable technology. It's changed everything. It's changing your workflows. It's changing your creative process. How do you see it even further changing, as we move further into the future? We talked about those converging technologies. AR wasn't mentioned, but AR is right there. As soon as that becomes the first screen and these are changed out as wearables, this becomes your companion app. We're going to end up living in that transmedia metaverse. A metaverse is not going to all be in Unreal Engine. It's not going to happen. It's going to end up being based on, now it's what's telling you it's really interesting is it's based on natural language. So think about it. we went from emojis, we went from hashtags, we went from text to prompt, but now it's natural language again. They're breaking it down to these very simple building blocks. But it's going to end up all coming to life together. And I'm interested to see where you think that goes. But again, thank you all for being here. I love each and every one of your work. I'm a fan of it. But yeah, Diego, you want to take us home for you?
Yeah. I mean, thank you, Seth, for bringing us here. I think it's a great space to talk about this, because sometimes it feels like this very like bubble that you're living in terms of like your own creations. So thank you for that, and congrats to everyone on their works, because I think they're just wonderful. I hadn't seen some of them. I'll go to more detail, more
follow everyone on this panel, and then seriously stay connected to AICC. It's a fantastic community, and if you haven't played inside of our Discord yet, you can join us. Yusuf, we would welcome you to join our Midjourney explorations in there.
Of course.
Yeah,
but Diego, go ahead.
And I think at least since we're all architects here, I mean, I've been stepping out of the architectural world for a bit now. But in terms of architecture, I would say that those intersections are just opportunities, are opportunities for architects. I've seen, people from Saha moving into metaverse companies. And I think the traditional practice of architecture is hard enough. It's crowded enough that all these new technologies, if you harvest the potential of them, it can create great opportunities for you as an individual professionally, but also for your own business. And in terms of myself, I think CGI is just waiting to be replaced by these diffusion models. The more advanced that they get, it's just I see it just as a matter of time.
There's a distance gap that's going to close, and it's going to close really quickly, because what you're seeing is you can take a stick figure and then layer upon it a rich, 8K simulated version. So when you take a look at what NVIDIA is doing with Morrowind's upscaling, or what modders are doing with GTA, and they're bringing it to like Crisis level of fidelity, or like, you see what they just did with the cyber, I forget the name of it, but you can pump through this. So it, like a broadcast production, could be low res, put it through a diffusion model. Once we close that gap, how long we can do these, and then the time on it. And if it's a live to tape recording piece, you're able to take the whole thing up. It's remarkable. Diego, listen, thank you for taking the time to join us this morning. I loved having a chance to meet you. I know, I don't know if it was I that was chasing you in London, and you were, rebuffing my advances, but we didn't get a chance to spend enough time together. Great to see you this morning.
It was great. Thank you, Seth. My pleasure.
Michalis, tell us where you think this goes, and let me get this right graphic up just so they could see your artwork as well. I love your work.
Thank you very much. I only have 2% of battery right now, so I'm going to be very quick.
Okay.
So thank you very much for having all of us here. It's been a pleasure, and sharing all these ideas. And I think it's really important for the AI community to grow, because we do share and we learn from everybody. And it's pretty amazing where AI is taking us. And I'm really, really thrilled that this technology came up, because as me personally and many other designers, architects, and artists who had many ideas in their heads when they were studying, they wanted to create them somehow, either through drawing, either through 3D modeling. Now we have the chance to engage in that and create wonderful things. And I think eventually CGI artists at some point they will become obsolete, and we will have to engage in this new technology and learn from it. And I think probably, I don't know, 20 years from now, maybe this is how we're going to be working.
I definitely, I see a future to where everything is changed in a period of time. I don't know if that's 5 years, if that's 10 years, if that's 20 years, but I see this revolutionizing the movie industry, whether it's concept design and training a diffusion model on your actor, on your set pieces, on your style, your era, your this. Every single piece, the patina, the color scheme, all of that gets baked into it so that when someone's on set, and if you're looking at somebody who's working on like what is a brain bar now for an XR production like The Mandalorian, or, you know, Andor didn't do as much, but, you know, when you look at that, if somebody has to do, and I'm not saying that you can, I know how much time it takes, you know, to do transitions and all that, but if you're looking at doing a new sketch, you can output work that features your actor in the scene, in the perspective, in the style, in the camera shot, and you can even enter in like the camera type. It's remarkable. So I think that once you have that gap, you know, that like the speed, the delivery gets shortened, and then I think that the length of, you know, what you can do, I think that this is going to change everything. I do also think that AI has something to do with content delivery network. I just don't know how that works, and I'm not an engineer, but I do see that some of that's happening. Michalis, I think your phone might die at one point in time. We appreciate you. Again, I love your work. You're my favorite brutalist. If anybody sees me make that in his comments, don't think that that's a comment on him. It's just a comment on his style. So brilliant. But thank you. You're the best, and I love your creations.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Iosif, let's close this out.
Yeah, first I want to thank you, Seth, for this panel, and I want to thank Michalis and Diego and Matthias. Like, their work is amazing. And I think Monomo was one of the first images I saw when I was still using Disco, and I couldn't understand why I couldn't get similar results. So with time, like I figured out. I think it's interesting, like for architects to work more with different fields. You know, on LinkedIn, like there is like people from all different backgrounds doing images. So you have someone who studied business and an engineer, and each one has different ideas and different styles and different way to see things. Like, so it would be interesting maybe for an architect to work with a lighting designer, with an engineer, and see how to make the project maybe more visually, like not just aesthetic, but also like working, for example. And I'm in contact with a lot of artists on Instagram through this page that I had, Sci-Fi Scapes, and a lot of them have a different way of thinking of all this, you know, like compared to us architects. Like, and they give you tips that you never thought about, most on Disco Diffusion. So it's nice to do some collaborations with different people from different backgrounds, I would say.
I think that's the one thing that's interesting about this. Like, we talked about creating, we talked about the democratization of a creative process. We didn't really go into that too much, but this is what that tool has done, is it is put in the hands of people that have experiences that are value, like that can be rich. They can be rich experiences, but they may not have the proficiency with a 3D design tool, drawing, anatomical, you know, like my hand drawings would probably look like Midjourney's hand drawings, you know. It would look exactly the same. But now this tool comes in and says everybody has value and can contribute on a level, you know, and bring something interesting to the table. But the other thing that we talked about is that synergy. You know, you just touched on it right now. And LinkedIn is a very interesting space to be in because we're building our brands, our own brands. Michalis, I don't associate you with a company. Diego, I have to now. I mean, Monomo is the only way I will now, is because it's your name. But I know you first. And you think about it before you'd find somebody on LinkedIn and you'd say, oh, he works at so-and-so, or she works here. And then you'd associate them with the position. But now I see you as leaders, thought leaders, as creators inside of the space. So you're building your own personal brand. And by sharing, that's creating a network effect. And that network effect is amazing. We went over where we all are located. We're distributed across the world in different time zones. And we've come together based off of our fact of stepping out of our comfort zone, sharing to a wide audience some of our creations, and it's brought us all together. So amazing. I appreciate you all. I thank you all for joining today. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you,
Yeah.
Seth. What a great space.
Yeah, well, thank you all for joining. And then if you guys want to create inside of the server, the community would love to. AICC, you guys see it. I post it all the time. Jump in there if you want. But have a good day. I'm going to close out the show. I'll see you guys later.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Thank you, Seth. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
All right. Thank you for tuning in. I wanted to touch on what's happening with AICC. It really is remarkable. It's quite incredible. You all are creating this movement daily. I see you create inside of the Discord server. I see you share it across LinkedIn as well as other socials. You've created this amazing community that is inspiring each other moment after moment. And I just want to say thank you to everybody and for all of the work that you've done, the founding members and the Discord team. You guys are fantastic. We do have some upcoming speakers coming. Kev McRae is coming soon. Kev McRae don't play. We have Marco Morales, one of the AICC original founding members. Bubble Punk is his. Fantastic artist, wonderful creator. I'm glad to have found AI because I found him. And then we have Dominic Cardosa. If you guys don't know Dominic Cardosa, he is multidisciplinary. He's going to have been everywhere you wanted to be, and then some more. So I can't wait to welcome him in. And then we're bringing in the some of my early originators, and that's Carlos Pabaudigian. Carlos, you'll have to tell me how to pronounce that properly. I'm so sorry. And then he'll be joined by Marcos Siqueira Campos. Everybody be good. Share, like, follow, comment, and then thank you for your time. I appreciate you. Thank you to all of our panelists as well, Matthias, Iosif, Michalis, and Diego. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you guys. Have a good day. Now to close us out with our latest creation. If you want to submit a video for this, do it. We'd love to be able to share your work. Talk to you soon. Peace.